Just your reaction to the way the defensive line played. They're going to have to be outstanding for this defense to be average.
Bingo. The degree of error is slim to none, and it puts so much pressure on Myles Garrett. He can handle it. He's paid to handle it, and he balled out last night, quite frankly. The one play that not even Vegas can predict is that strip fumble across the NFL. It's the hardest play it's a chance thing because you can sack the quarterback, but when you're able to get your hands on the football and swing possessions and swing field position like that, to me, it's one of the biggest game-changing plays in football. And Myles Garrett was able to do that. Going in, everyone knew the Browns' defensive line had a huge advantage against the Bengals' offensive line, which I've already talked about. It's probably the worst offensive line in football. But you still got to prove it. You still got to go out and win the matchup. And across the board, they did that. Myles Garrett, Adrian Claiborne, Jordan Elliott, the rookie, had a nice game. Sheldon Richardson continues to be a consummate pro. And his sack was impressive. He was hitting Joe Mixon in the backfield a few times. Even Porter Gustin getting in there. All these players graded in the top 10 of the Browns defensive players on PFF. So that tells you what you need to know. It's a group that will carry this defense. And I couldn't say it better. For this defense to even be average, the defensive line has to play perfect.
Is there room for them to play even better? I mean, Richardson, you could see he was creating problems early. And then I think they kind of slid. And then, guys, it's a domino effect. If you're going to cover Richardson, Ogunjobi or Myles Garrett or Gustin's going to get at it. Do they have the wherewithal to take it up to the level the Browns really need them to?
Yeah, I forgot to mention Larry Ogunjobi there. Glad you did. He's another guy, potential contract extension guy playing for big money right now. He's someone to keep an eye on, despite how poor this defense may play going forward. Just in the future roster building of the Browns, he's a guy to keep watching. He's playing for big money, and he played well yesterday. Can they play better? I'll say this. Sure, everyone can always play better. They can be schemed better. I think it's real innovative what Kiffin and Joe Woods are doing with this defensive line. They're flashing double A gap blitzes, which Mike Zimmer coined in Minnesota. Their Myles Garrett's sack was actually, I think it must have been on some sort of stunt, or perhaps he just was lined up inside and he beat one of the Bengals guards who are even weaker than their tackles, if that's even possible, and was able to get that sack. So it's innovative, it's creative to see and deploy your athletes along the defensive line like this. It's a lot of what the 49ers did last year and found success. So Joe Woods knows exactly what he wants out of a defensive line, molding it after the 49ers. And I'll say this when it comes to if they can play better. They played phenomenal last night, but the quarterback for the Bengals made them look like they weren't playing as well. He was still hit 6 times. He was also hit 6 times against the Chargers, but Joe Burrow gets the ball out quick. He looked like a real professional last night. It was almost like an LSU light version of Joe Burrow. We're going to see the Browns defensive line show up, get more sacks, live behind the line of scrimmage even more against a team like, say, Washington, who doesn't have Joe Burrow, but still has a young quarterback who's going to be way more indecisive, hold on to the ball way longer. And that's the type of game where they'll play just like they did on Thursday, but they'll show up more in the stat sheet and behind the line of scrimmage because the quarterback will be the difference maker ultimately.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Joe Burrow did not play like a guy in his second NFL game without question. He's going to be really good. Before we turn the page from the defense, are these some of the things the Browns anticipated? Because we talked earlier, quite a bit earlier in the year, that you can't fill all the holes, and there were some holes the Browns kind of knew they had on the defensive side of the ball. I think injuries have magnified them a little bit, but I think this is kind of the defense the Browns kind of knew they were going to have heading into the year.
Yeah, we talked about it all offseason. Who are going to be the linebackers? Who's going to step up? And they wanted to give their young guys a chance and see what they have. Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski clearly know or have a really good inkling that this is a long-term plan. So they wanted to see Jacob Phillips. They wanted to see Mack Wilson. They wanted to see Grant Delpit and see how they could create in space and how they could move sideline to sideline. And so far, they're not going to have any tape to go off when they build this roster forward. And I said it earlier, they've really made this bet, and this is the defense they're going to have. So yes, they're going to continue to get pressure up front, not be able to cover anyone in the middle, hope that teams avoid Denzel Ward and that Greedy Williams gets back and can turn into another version of Ward and these corners can be solidified. And then the offense again will have to carry him. This is just what they've decided to do with the roster. I'm not Kevin Clark of The Ringer yet. I can't get Andrew Berry to sit down with me one-on-one and ask him that question of, hey, with the true serum in hand, were you truly expecting this defense to stop anyone in the slot or any opposing tight ends? Because every tight end's going to have a good week versus the Browns. So on paper, it looks like they were ready for this. On the field, it sure looks like this is going to be a trend going forward. And to me, that tells me that both, first, they wanted to give their young guys a chance, and second, this is a 2-3 year plan building the defense, not a win now defense.